Oh, welcome to the Honest TV podcast. We're the podcast for health professionals and the wider community looking to explore diverse ideas on health, ask some hard questions, and have some honest conversations. My name is Archie. I'm an EP based in Sydney's Northern Beaches, and joining me as always is our health business owner, Andrew. Andrew, how are you today?
I'm good.
That was
How
wild.
are you, Archibald?
I'm on one, I think.
That is exciting.
I don't know what's happening.
4:46 on Thursday afternoon.
Yeah,
and
I know.
That came out.
And I am ready to crack a beer.
Yeah.
Because it's been one of those kind of weeks where a beer needs to be cracked.
It is. It has, indeed. What
Holy
are you
shit.
cracking?
Holy shit, that tastes good. A Gage Roads Pipe Dreams Coastal Lager, 4.2%. It's in a aqua blue waves with like a sunsetty, pale, pastel-y orange sky. Live the dream, it says. It's really nice.
Very good. I have nothing to add.
I don't think there is anything to add other than
Oh, it's very drinkable.
It's good.
On a Thursday afternoon.
bad day to be a beer.
Yeah, that is very, very easily drinkable.
Yeah.
So well done.
It's probably good we've got two of these each because
It could get
this
could get
podcast
interesting.
could be over in 10 minutes otherwise. It'd be, oh no, he spilled some on his puffer jacket. Oh no, he's had a nightmare.
no.
Oh no, not the nice rebound puffer jacket. That's no good. We can't have the exercise physiologist of the year getting beer on his puffer jacket, can we now? Congratulations,
Awkward
by the
silence.
way. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
For those who don't know, I'm going to make Andrew cringe for a little bit. Andrew is officially the Allied Health Awards Exercise Physiologist of the Year 2023. Yay! Very good. Very
Thank
exciting.
you.
And he's so stoked and he's so excited that he's going to give us his pre-prepared 10 to 20 second thank you speech to the podcast world.
Thank you. Yes. No spilling. Oh, he's choking. That's
Oh, no.
good. Well done.
All right. No, it also very well done. Good for you. I'm
Thanks.
sure the podcast was a huge part of why you won the award.
It was just the award submission. I was like, just
Right.
check out the podcast.
Check out
and
podcast
it's
is
like,
everything you need to know.
Okay, there it is.
And work cover sucks and
Yeah, and all that sort of stuff.
all
But,
that good
yeah.
stuff. But yeah, very good. In all seriousness, how does one end up in that position?
How does one end up in that position? There's some imposter syndrome because I am not a practicing EP anymore. So there's probably a very valid question about why I am the EP of the year when I'm not an EP. I do still pay my membership fees, so technically,
Well, that's good. You
I
could
am.
practice if you wanted to.
I could if I wanted to.
Does that mean you pay for your insurance as well?
Yeah, it does.
That sucks.
It does suck. Maybe I should look into that.
Yeah.
No, I need that. I need to have
to
that.
keep your registration, you have to have
Yeah.
your insurance.
Yeah.
Damn.
Which is annoying. Because I've also spent half of my day watching the bloody first aid videos that I need to go and do my re-certification in. So I'm committed now.
You're committed, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's just good as a normal human being to have that anyway, right?
Sure it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You never know what could happen. A car could crash outside the clinic and you might need to help someone.
You might.
Because that happened today.
It did.
Outside our clinic. Poor Sam.
Poor Sam.
Poor Sam.
Sam's...
Car's parked on the side of the road, goes outside at lunchtime and sees her car has been written off. Written off. The other car has been towed away. The police have left a note saying, call this number. And she's like, what the fuck happened to my car? And poor thing.
Oh, dear.
Bad day to be a Sam. And a beer.
And a beer. And the APA.
And the Great segue. And the APA. Bad day to be an APA.
Yeah.
An Australian Physiotherapy Association. Why is it a bad day to be an APA?
Oh, well, we're going to tear into them in a minute, aren't we?
Well, once the big dogs on the Honest DP podcast get into you, you know you have it. You know you've done something wrong.
Yes, and I think perhaps as the Honest EP podcast is probably a good starting point for this about the fact that we are the Honest EP podcast and our views are our own and they are Unfiltered.
Unfiltered. This is not we're not the view of other EPs, of ESSA, of anyone other than ourselves, really. And anyone other than ourselves who are also slightly intoxicated.
Yes.
So,
So don't blame me.
take everything with a grain of salt. Blame the beer. But not Gage roads. They're wonderful.
No, not them. It's the driver.
So if you don't know, if you've been living under a rock in the EP world, which some people might be, but also in the allied health world, the Australian Physiotherapy Association, about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago now, brought out a valuing skills fact sheet. And the first and only part of this valuing skills fact sheet was the differences between a physiotherapist and an exercise physiologist. Look, if I was to summarize this, look, relatively short. It's a 2-page PDF. If I was to summarize it, it's a bit like, that South Park episode where they go, "They took our germs," and then they just get really angry. And they took our germs, and it feels like the APA is kind of trying to make a point of difference of EPs can't do all of these wonderful things that physios can do. So let's not collaborate on a PDF that is probably very useful for people to answer, like what is the difference between a physio and EP, but just kind of take the liberty to just say it themselves.
Yeah, I think generally a good idea would be to collaborate with some sort of representative from either ESSA or the ESSA membership base to put together what I would assume is a resource that is supposed to be for the general public.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that it's not really marketing for the Physio Association. It's supposed to be used in the public forum. Yeah. But you haven't included the perspective of an EP. So I feel like that's a bit of a shitty thing to do. It's
very weird to have a document that is talking about the differences between these two professions that is just made by the one profession. Is a very weird comparison to do. Yeah. It's like we're comparing these two things. We are one of the things, and we're going to talk about the other one, not including them without consulting.
Without consulting them.
So a little biased if I was to say just a little bit.
Yes.
And I am aware that ESSA has reached out to APA in the past to go, hey, do you want to collaborate on a document like this? Because obviously a lot of people ask this question. APA said no, as far as we know from the ESSA statement that was in reply to. And here we are.
Here we are.
Where do you want to start?
And look, I think if the shoe was on the other foot, right? If ESSA tried to produce a 2-pager that tried to differentiate between a physio and an EP that didn't involve collaboration from an APA representative, then it'd be shat on by the APA.
It shouldn't be done in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating.
Very frustrating.
Where do we start? Okay. Here, I've picked out a couple of
go on.
choice sentences. Exercise physiologists do not diagnose. Patients should see a GP or a physiotherapist first for diagnosis and determine the optimal treatment pathway.
Because that's what people need, is more barriers between starting rehab
They should spend more money.
They should spend more money getting more assessments before they start actually doing anything of value. It's weird.
It's odd.
So that kind of says to me, it's like, some things, it's like, hey, we need GP clearance to do this. Like, say you've just had a heart attack, or maybe you've just had a stroke. It's like, hey, can you get clearance to exercise first from your GP? And then we can start doing things once we have, the primary treating doctor has given us clearance for it. This is now saying it's like, oh, you've hurt your shoulder. It's like, can you go get clearance from a physiotherapist to get clearance that moving your hurt shoulder is okay before you move it, which in 99% of cases is the correct thing to do. And in the 1% that aren't, anyone can rule out red flags quite easily.
Quite easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're painting these very broad brushstrokes about what exercise physiology is,
Yes.
right? Like, as EPs, we work with a very wide range of people and conditions. And to say that somebody with diabetes should go and get a diagnosis from a physio before they come and do exercise,
Yes.
like, what are you talking about?
There's
Like,
some really interesting like separation statements they put here. Like and if you look at the things they put in bold, it really tells you what they're trying to highlight. I think it's really funny. Like they've highlighted that what physiotherapists do is they use evidence-based clinical reasoning. It's like, great, good, as you should. EPs don't use clinical reasoning, apparently. That's not something that is in our scope of practice to use clinical reasoning. We provide distinct forms of exercise and exercise intervention.
what does that mean?
Distinct forms of exercise? I don't know.
What does that mean?
I think everything is
Everything
a distinct
form of exercise.
But we only do that.
Right, okay,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
good.
We don't clinically reason the distinct forms. That has to be
We
reasoned.
just do distinct forms.
That has to be reasoned for us, and then we look through our book of distinct forms of exercise, and then we pick a clinical exercise intervention, because that's our main modality.
Fantastic. I feel very secure
Very good.
knowing that information.
Very good.
Um,
Don't you dare come to me if you don't
Right.
diagnose us though.
right. Diagnosis. Do you diagnose?
No.
No. How useful is a diagnosis?
To me, a diagnosis for a client or a patient is useful in making them feel safe, secure, that they have a treatment plan. There is a prognosis for, this is how you should recover, and this is how long you should take, and that you are not in risk of doing further harm, that kind of thing.
So to start at the beginning there, like, are we capable of identifying red flags?
Yes, yeah. Everyone,
Right.
every health professional has been trained at university at a basic level of how to identify red flags.
Right.
You can do that through a good subjective history, medical history, family history of disease, and also a physical examination, which is not difficult.
No.
That's kind of the things that uni does a good job of teaching you is ruling out red flags.
Right.
Generally.
So cross that one off.
Cross that one off, yeah.
So then it comes, and I presume part of the underlying kind of concept here is that physiotherapists, by virtue of being able to diagnose, are able to do these special tests.
Yes.
That are magical and that tell you exactly what is going on.
Very special.
Very special. How special are they?
Well, here's the first thing with the special tests is they're not special enough that you can't do them as another profession. Anyone can do the special tests. Anyone can do them. They're just movements that provoke pain. And then depending on which movements give you a positive or a negative outcome, then that leads to a diagnosis. So we can't put the label of the diagnosis on the thing. We could do the special tests that lead to the diagnosis. We just don't have...
You can't put a label on it.
We can't put a label on it, which is fine. The label I normally put on it is just like irritated or painful or sensitive or pissed off thing, But in terms of the special tests themselves, we now have like really good data in the research to show that the special tests aren't very special at all. They're not very specific, and they're not very reliable at correctly diagnosing even the correct tissue that could be injured or damaged. And then on a broader scale, we know that humans are not machines, and that there is never one driver of pain, and that the tissue injury, if we're talking about a MSK situation, the tissue injury is one form of nociception. input that goes to the brain, then you have this whole human attached to that. That also impacts someone's pain experience. And it's very, not narrow-minded, it's very biomedical. It's very biomedical to then reduce someone's injury diagnosis down to a tissue, like a rotator cuff, for example, because you can have a rotator cuff tear that's quite severe, but not have any pain attached to it. So if someone comes in with a painful shoulder and you do your Hawkins-Kennedy test, your open can, empty can, and all these things, and you go, this is a supraspinatus tear, and that is the reason that you have pain. It's like, well, hold up. You can have supraspinatus tear and no pain at all. So how are you actually ruling in that and ruling out other things? So the special tests are not actually good at ruling out other drivers of pain in the first place. So, and this is like across the whole body as well. This is not like a just shoulder related. It's just the shoulder stuff's just fresh in my mind because we had a knowledge exchange course here on the weekend, and Luke and Brendan do a very, very good job at work, like taking you through the research in regards to special tests. But I've been to their courses for every part of the body, and it's the same thing. We can't reduce any human's pain experience down to a tissue by itself.
Yeah. And I think, like, just to pull out another sort of section of this fact sheet, is that exercise physiologists take the diagnosis made by a physiotherapist or medical practitioner and provide an intervention based on the medical or clinical diagnosis.
Which is so funny, because that is reducing a human down to a diagnosis, and that is not how any practitioner should be treating someone. And I don't care what intervention you're doing, whether that's whether that is a distinct form of exercise, whether it's a manual therapy or another passive therapy or talk therapy or anything, you're not treating a diagnosis, you're treating a person. And the person's experience and the person's goals is way more important than the name of the diagnosis written down on a sheet of paper from anyone, or even someone's MRI findings. That's not like how I treat a person. Maybe it gives you some guide as to what that person's experience is and what their expectations are for how they'll be managed. But you should be dealing with the person in front of you. And that is rarely about just the diagnosis. When we're talking about MSK, generally the way you would design a rehab program that is individual to the human in front of you is you would start with the end task in mind and go, okay, what is it that we need to get you back to doing? And then we would do a form of that and see what they are able to do currently, pain limited, or movement or fear or apprehension limited. And then we work back from there. We find a regression, we find a good place to start, and we work out what the low-hanging fruit are for what they could do to improve their ability to do that task. That's got nothing to do with the diagnosis. That's got to do with just the person and how they move their body.
Yeah. Oh! Woo!
God,
chills.
Beer's almost finished.
Excellent.
Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you have.
You're copying a lot of.
You have nailed that.
Saliva in your face because I just.
Good. Saliva away.
How are we unregulated? Are EPs unregulated?
Oh, we're cowboys. Like,
Yeah.
we just go around doing, like, get your 90-year-old grandma with osteoporosis. They should be doing clean and jerks.
Get on the floor.
Yeah.
Burpees.
Yeah. Just totally cowboys
Just
is what we do.
smashing shit. Yeah.
We don't know what we're doing.
And ESSA can't control us.
ESSA can't control us. We don't have insurance, so we've got no sort of
No.
no
What are you gonna do to
person
me?
tapping us on the shoulder.
Yeah.
We can just do whatever the fuck we want.
It's great.
It's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. You should see the results we get. It's really good. Of course we're fucking regulated. Of course we have to be regulated.
Why are we not regulated by APRA?
Because we're not dangerous enough, according to APRA. We don't hurt people enough. There haven't been enough insurance claims against EPs to warrant us being a more significant risk to the population than the other people that are in it.
Wow.
Bold statement. We don't pose enough risk. So we don't need, and in fact, it's been our choice not to be registered with AHPRA because there are other regulatory bodies that govern a whole bunch of health services that we choose to fall under.
The NASRHP, the National Alliance of Self-Regulating Health Professions.
Exactly right.
Right.
So we are a part of that. We have a self-regulating body, which means we have a governing body that determines what is our scope of practice, who are the appropriate people to be working with, what are the methodologies that we should be applying to them, and should we step out of that scope of practice, we answer to them and to an insurance company if it's negligent.
Yeah.
Right. This idea that or the conception here that we are unregulated, therefore we can just do whatever the hell we want. It's inaccurate. Fuck you. and it portrays us coming back to the idea that this document is supposed to be more for a public facing audience. It paints us in a really not accurate light.
Just this little statement at the very bottom of this document. So comparing the two, where it's like physiotherapists are both internally and externally regulated. They're a registered profession and practice within their scope under legislatively protected title physiotherapist under the Health Practitioner Regulation National Law. Cool, great. Exercise physiologists are self-regulated. Exercise physiologists are self-regulated through their governing body, ESSA, and are not required to meet practice standards within national law.
Well, that's just wrong, right? That's
just broad, wrong. Sweeping statement.
Also, so it's wrong because it's wrong. It's wrong because accredited exercise physiologist is a restricted term. Not anybody can call themselves an accredited exercise physiologist.
AEPs, not just EPs.
Exactly right. And I appreciate that there is some grey there, but it is a restricted term. You can't be a personal trainer and call yourself an accredited exercise physiologist because there are processes and safeguards and insurances that govern the work that we do.
So it's just a very inflammatory statement. So,
well, I feel inflamed.
Yeah, I'm very inflamed. I have osteoarthritis in a second here.
Bit of bursitis in the shoulder.
My bursa is inflamed. Bursa of my head.
We're on to our second beer for those keeping score.
I've opened my second beer. Andrew's about to open his second beer. I think it's really funny how they decided in that last statement there that they'll leave out the words of the Health Practitioner Regulation National Law, and they'll just write EPs are not required to meet practice standards within the national law.
The national
just
law.
Whatever the fuck.
All of the law.
All of the national laws we're not required to meet.
None of them.
We can work outside the law.
How good.
If you see an EP, you are working with someone who is an outlaw. Literally. And no one can control them.
No one can control them.
They're not bound by any national laws. Any at all. Oh my goodness. It's wild. It's so wild. So it's a very, very interesting document. And we've skipped over a bunch of it. But, this comes post, what was it, a month ago, maybe a bit over a month ago, when CIRA released a new update to their guideline care for treating, I can't remember if it was just low back pain or if it was just musculoskeletal injuries under work cover related claims.
Interesting timing.
It's kind of almost too coincidental for it not to be in a bit of response to it, because APA did have a response to that statement. Basically, what CIRA was saying in that one, and they were proposed new guidelines. I don't even know if those guidelines have actually been released onto their website, but they were proposed guidelines that they wanted people's input into. And they were saying that, hey, straight after you have a low back pain injury, lower back injury, or a muscle injury, you should seek an active-based health practitioner. That could be a physiotherapist or an AEP, or including AEP and physiotherapist. You don't necessarily need to have like a specific diagnosis, but you should be going into active-based care from an exercise health professional. I believe the word's exercise health professional.
Which could be a physio.
It could be any allied health.
Could be any allied health.
There, like, especially when you look at, well, what is most effective for long-term management and acute management of most musculoskeletal injuries, it's like early active-based therapy.
Yeah.
So they released that statement, and APA came back with a thing that was basically an email to all of that. They emailed all of their members just saying they took our jobs, basically. And
Fuck you.
And don't let them do it.
Yeah.
And a lot of physios, well, at least the ones I talk to, are like, what? Like, what? How small of the pond of people with work-related injuries do you think this is? And that, like, we're suddenly going to be out of business? It's like, physio... Like, all the physios I talk to, none of them cared that much. They're like, why are you inflaming this thing? Why are you making this a thing? Everyone's like, yeah, cool. Like, do active-based therapy. That's what we do. That's what we should be doing.
Yeah.
For a lot of these injuries. And yeah, maybe we do a bit of manual therapy and that helps, like, modulate some pain. Cool, great. But we're still doing active therapy. That's still like the basis of our care. It's like, why is our national association getting so pissed off at this?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't
Because the wording in the guidelines was going to be changed from physiotherapist to exercise health professional. And they didn't feel like that was them enough. Very protective.
Very protective.
Of their ground that they have held for...
And so you might think about, well, why is that the case?
Well, it's very understandable. They were... They're probably... Would you say they're the most populous physical therapist in Australia?
Off the top of my head, yes, without any statistics. But I would think that in the eye of the public, if you think I'm in pain, probably the first port of call is I'll go and see a physio.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt in that at all. And to think that some guideline care from CIRA is going to suddenly change the minds of all of these people, and that your turf, for lack of a better word, is going to be stepped on by other people. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. The only people that would be concerned would be the people that are probably over-servicing or focusing just on a passive treatment modality and thinking that what Sierra's putting out is earth-shaking because 99% of the consult is done with the patient lying on a bed. But I think we've progressed past that. And I think this is reflective of our team, and it's reflective of the physios that we've spoken to, is that there's been this movement towards an active-based approach to musculoskeletal pain for years now. So this is not new. This is not different. This is kind of what we're doing anyway. So, like, why are you getting
What's
all
the issue?
uppity about it?
Yeah. It's like your profession are probably the main researchers in the area that are leading us towards this. Like, they're the ones that are putting the guidelines together. There aren't many... the AEPs out there doing research are a very, very small group. Most of them are part of a team, and the people who've been researching the longest are physiotherapists because they're the ones who have had that qualification for longer. AEP hasn't even been a qualification long enough for there to be 50-year-old EP researchers. They don't exist.
No.
They don't exist yet.
No.
They will. They'll be there one day, but that's fine. We're not there yet. But and
I think to bring it back to a grassroots conversation, right? Like a GP who has been working in the work cover scheme for years, and they're not going to read this document and go, oh shit, I should stop referring to physio. No, not physio. I should stop referring to Joe, the physio down the road, because, oh shit, he's been doing the wrong thing for 20 years. Of course not.
No.
He's been delivering a great service to his patients for a long time. probably now moving towards more of a active approach to
Yeah.
therapy if that person is in line with more evidence-based research. And so that GP's not going to change their mind.
No.
Like,
Who is this for?
what are you doing?
Who are you,
Stop it.
who are you trying to help here? Is this just to make you feel better, APA? Just to go, yeah, that's
Look at what
right.
we wrote.
Look what we wrote.
It's good.
This is on our website now. Yeah. That'd be great. Yeah. Anyway, so in response, ESSA put out a document, which, look, we talk about ESSA a bit. I've loved what ESSA said here. I thought they really took the high road. I thought they didn't bring themselves down to the level of what APA said. They didn't use the name of APA at all. And they wrote a post on the website saying misleading information on scope of practice of accredited exercise physiologists. And look, they went reasonably direct, which I think was necessary. I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, ESSA, you get them.
Well, I think there's I think there's some very like hungry ESSA members who like have over the last maybe 18 months to 2 years been a sense of like a little bit of frustration maybe about ESSA's lack of inaction when it comes to in the public sphere pushing up against what APA has said in particular. And so I think seeing something like this is like,
Yeah.
fuck yeah. Like,
Yeah.
good on you.
You get them.
You get it.
You get them.
Yeah.
Look at the little dog. Look
Yeah.
at that little dog bark.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's good.
And look, the gist of it was like, hey, here is what our scope of practice actually is. Here is how we are actually regulated as accredited exercise professionals. Like, we're not registered with APRA because the risks to the public through a professional practice is low, and therefore the government doesn't need to take on this regulatory burden. We're not a burden to people.
We are not a burden to people.
Yeah, so leave us alone. We're just over here minding our own business. Leave us alone.
Why are you picking a fight with us?
Yeah, it's like, but we have this other independent body, and the standards that they set are closely aligned with APRA's. All right? So, we give assurance to patients that we're receiving quality service from a certified health professional. Okay? And I like the what's next section. Because ESSA says that, like, we'll continue to work with government, we'll continue to work with NDIS, aged care, private health, hospitals, and the community, ensure that they can get benefit from delivery of clinical exercise. We're also, I love this. They finished their last sentence.
Yeah, I
is
saw
fucking
that
great. ESSA seeks a public apology and retraction of this content from this professional association for misleading Australian consumers, referrers, and funders of healthcare.
Yeah.
It's like, give us our fucking apology.
Write it down.
Yeah, write it down. Yeah, put that
Fuckers.
in your valuing skills fact sheets.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I like that. Do you think we'll get an apology?
No. Well, I don't know. Because now there's a lot of call from some level-headed ESSA members. And I'm sure, like, I'm not huge on the physio LinkedIn, so I haven't seen what's been going on over there. I see a lot of the EP LinkedIn stuff because I just spam LinkedIn connections.
Yeah, you do.
Mainly EPs.
Yeah, you do.
I've got a collection of like 800 EPs. But there's a lot of level-headed EPs out there going like, hey, I've reached out to the APA CEO to chat, and we want to talk, and we want to collaborate on a better document. And we want to talk about, what do they want out of this document, and what are their concerns, and how can we help address their concerns. And I think that's the right way to go. And look, the ball is really in their court. I think, if anything, I think they've kind of done the exact opposite of what they meant to, which was, whether they acknowledge it or not, that the APA statement has tried to kind of degrade the skills and the value that AEPs can provide in musculoskeletal care. What I think they've done is brought attention to the existence of EPs as a profession that provides clinical exercise and distinct forms of exercise and interventions that help people with injuries. Because I guarantee that anyone who reads that who didn't already have an opinion on the issue of what do physios do and what do EPs do, would have gone, oh, wonder what EPs do. And then they would have looked up, what does an EP do? And then they would have ended up on ESSA's website or some clinic's website that would have probably given a really good explanation of what an EP does and go, oh, now I know what an EP does. Doesn't really sound like what it said on that fact sheet thing. And now they're going, why is the Physiotherapy Association kind of just like shitting on this random profession? And then they're going, God, APA is a bit weird, aren't they? So in the way that they're trying to keep their ground, stand their ground, they've actually probably lost ground in a turf war that doesn't exist, that they're creating themselves.
Yeah.
No one actually cares about it as an EP. Like, I feel like all EPs really want is for, well, once again, I should probably not say all EPs want. All I want as an EP is for the other health professionals that I work with in the care of my clients, whether they're private, NDIS, work cover, whatever, is people who are on the same page as me in terms of what this individual needs. And if we can all be working on the same base of guidelines, the same best practice, fuck, my life would be so much easier. And I'd probably, it would just make life so easy. Because you just have so much trust that, like, fuck, now we're double handling this person, which is something that I feel like a lot of us deal with. And people from every healthcare profession deal with this, is that you see a client, you give them some advice, you go through some things. Great, they've got a plan for the next week before I see them next. And then during that week, they see their other healthcare practitioner and they tell them something different. And then the client has to pick who they listen to. And then they come back and they go, oh, but you know, this person said this and you said this. So because I saw them last 4 days, I've been doing what they said, which is, you know, and they're not saying this, but it's the opposite of what I said. And the classic one is, you know, hey, just let your back move a bit and relax, and, you know, that might actually help if you desensitize it, if you just kind of relax and not brace as much when you move. And then they go see someone else and they go, hold that fucking shit in place.
It will fall apart.
If you don't squeeze hard enough, your disc is going to shoot out of your back. It's going to slip. You know how slippery it is in there? It's going to slip out. All right? So all right, it's like an ice rink in there. Between every single one of your vertebrae is an ice rink, okay? So hold that fucking core in, because if you don't, they're going everywhere. It's going. You're going to slip over, all right? And we can't have you just slipping around in there, all right? So keep that shit together. And then they come in and I go, oh, fuck. I'm going to go through this whole shit again.
Yeah.
And
you are not an ice rink.
Yeah.
It is okay.
You do not have ice rinks in your back. Believe it or not. Oh, dear. Tough.
Yeah.
Tough. Yeah.
Okay. If your mum was to read this, now your mum's different because I know she's a chiro.
Yeah, that's not a good example.
Philosophically,
if a mum that is not a health professional that happens
was to read this, and they came to you and said, "Hey Archie, I just read this thing. I'm a bit confused. What would you tell them about this?"
Jeez. I would probably ask, do you want to be my mum in this situation?
Sure.
Okay, cool. What are you confused about, mum?
Well, it feels like I should just see physios for everything.
Yeah, right. What leads you in that statement to say that? Like, what's kind of coming across there that's making you feel like you should just see physios and not EPs?
Well, they've really painted EPs in a different light.
Yeah.
It feels like they're trying to make themselves as the port of call for everything.
Yeah.
So I feel a bit like uncertain.
It feels like they're almost telling you what to do, right? Yeah. It's kind of a little unusual, I think, for them to just kind of, hey,
It is a
you
bit
should
strange.
do this. Would you rather be told what to do in this situation or kind of being given choice about, hey, here are the pros and cons of seeing each? What would make more sense there for you?
Yeah, I think being a bit more level-headed would make a bit more sense.
Would it be helpful if I kind of directed you to another resource that kind of gives a better understanding of what both EPs and physios do well, and then maybe you can take you can pick from there?
Do you have such a resource?
Yeah, this podcast.
Fuck yes.
No, that doesn't exist at the moment. So, well, look, I'm happy to talk you through the benefits of both. But look, at the end of the day, whoever you see, they should be working off these best practice guidelines. So let me show you the best practice guidelines for the thing that you want to go and see them for. And then we can try and find you someone, physio, EP, whatever, who does that. Because you'll have good eggs and bad eggs in both professions. It's more about the person at this point than it is a profession.
Yeah.
And
Well done.
and I think that's where this is going, right? That there's so much gelling and coming together of all of the research and the guidelines, and now there's some blurred lines as to, well, if EPs do this and physios do this, but they're kind of similar for some parts, and maybe depending, who you see, they could be the same, or it could be completely different. It's like, what am I supposed to do? And so this document, I'm sure, has come from a place of, look, let's try and put make it more black and white for you of what physios do and what EPs do. So there's some separation there. But at what point do we need to stop separating?
Well, that's a really good point, right? And the quote that seems to come up quite frequently since this has come up, but has come up recently, is about this idea that, in 20 years' time, the label of an EP or a physio or a chiro or anything osteo, it's not going to mean as much as it did 20 years ago, because we will all be reading off the same playbook.
Yeah.
And if we are doing that, we're applying a very similar model or a similar prescription for what a person needs to actually recover from what it is that
And
they're
probably
coming to see
just
us
with a
for.
bit of personal bias towards something.
Sure.
Some form of treatment.
Yeah,
which is
absolutely.
fine. And that is important because clients have preferences for types of treatment. Like someone might only have 10 minutes in their day available to see a health professional. It's like, probably don't come to see me if you've only got 10 minutes in a day. Probably see someone who works very efficiently in that amount of time, which is probably a chiropractor or an osteo.
Yeah.
They can get through what they want to do with you in a short amount of time. But like, if you're with a chiro for an hour, a lot of chiros don't have the gear or the equipment or the space to do an hour session of here's my manipulations and my whatever my passive therapy is, but also here's a whole active program to go with it, because most of them are working in treatment rooms. So it there's patient preferences that have to be taken into account, and that should be how it goes forward, I reckon.
The idea that there needs to be this very clear separation in scopes of practice, like you can only do that and this is what we do.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. And documents like this, therefore, are a waste of time and effort and energy, because you're trying to create separation where there isn't separation. Again, I appreciate your point about like the different backgrounds from modalities will have their preferences as to how you treat, but to say that like EPs can only do whatever the fuck
Distinct
term,
forms
distinct
of
forms of exercise. I still don't know what that means. And physiotherapists use manual therapy techniques to reduce pain, facilitate recovery of normal movement, and rehabilitate patients using specifically designed exercise.
Hell.
Like what? Like You can't.
Stupid statement. Man.
It's a stupid statement because it
doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything. So
anything.
to try and draw a line between our scope of practices it's a waste of time. It's confusing to patients, to clients. It's confusing to other physios.
I love that they've tried to like summarize the entirety of what physios do in one sentence. And I think it's done a really poor job of kind of talking about what physios can do. Because if you're reducing the whole profession down to use manual therapy to reduce pain, facilitate the recovery of normal movement, and rehabilitate using specifically designed exercise programs, you've left out a fucking bunch of stuff that's super important around education and providing patients safety and reassurance that they'll recover, guiding them back to meaningful activities. Just all of these things.
All of which the physios...
helping them prevent future or like reduce the risk of future injury through following exercise guidelines and this kind of thing. Why? Like, I know you try to keep a concise document, but I think you've almost reduced what it sounds like your members do as well, because they do a way better job than that.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right.
And I think that's the important thing here, is that we're talking about APA here rather than physiotherapists, because I guarantee that physiotherapists in general, we're not consulted on this document. This was APA going, we're going to make a document.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fucking great document.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really need to go onto physiotherapy LinkedIn and have a look around. It's probably way broader than EP LinkedIn. Like, you know all the people in EP LinkedIn. It's so small.
It is small.
Yeah.
And we are a tight-knit
Very
community.
tight-knit group. Everyone knows everyone.
Yeah.
It's great. It's like being at uni. It's like being at Cumbo, eh? How good's Cumbo? For those who went there. Not this Susan Wakehill shit. I mean like Lincoln Cumbo. That was a time. All right, we're devolving into shit now. All right. Any wrapping up statements for you?
No, I look forward to the public apology that comes through from the APA about this piece of shit. And the great thing is that, a lot of the, I think the point you made before about, this is an APA document. This is not reflective of the physios that are out there doing great work with their clients every day. We know that because, like, when we chatted with our team about this, they're like, this is not what we do.
Yeah.
And similarly with the people that refer to us and that we refer to externally to Rebound, like, it's not black and white like this. It doesn't exist like this in practice. And I wouldn't, if you're an EP listening to this, I wouldn't take this as like, this is the belief that all physios have about physio and EP and the differences. That this has been probably produced by some back office person at APA who is not in touch with what is actually happening on the ground, and use it as a conversation starter with the people that you refer to and that refer to you as like, hey, like, what can we do collaboratively to, like you said before, to work off the same run sheet, to work together so that the client is at the center and we are not confusing that person and we are providing, advice that is evidence-guided, research-based, so that we end up with that person in a better health position than the reason that they came for us.
Amen. There you go. Andrew Dorman, Exercise Physiologist of the Year. Spin bars. And the only thing I would add to that is that you're right. Like, this APA person who's written this has definitely lost touch with the common physio that's working around here. And they've tried to create this turf war that doesn't exist and that no one wants. Nobody wants this.
No.
Yeah. Nobody asked for this document specifically. We'd love a collaborative document. I would love that. I don't think I'd want to be at the round table to help make it. Oh.
I think there would be lots of grey in this document.
Yeah.
I think there would be some little bits of black and some little bits of white, but I think there would be this huge section of grey.
Maybe we should just like release a 2-page PDF that's just grey paper. And go, hey, here's the scope of physiotherapists and EPs. Just grey.
Just grey.
Yeah. Physios have the diagnosis. Cool. Great. We have our distinct forms of exercise, but everything else is grey. There you go.
Settle that.
All right. Well, that'll do us. That's a rant. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.